We often treat humility as a behavioral quirk, a polite refusal to boast, or a quiet display of low self-esteem. We view it as a softness of character. The etymology of the word reveals a different purpose. Humility is derived from the Latin noun humus, which translates directly to dirt or earth. To be humble is to be physically and psychologically tethered to reality. It is the practice of remaining grounded. In classical Western philosophy, this grounding took the form of intense self-awareness. The Athenian philosopher Socrates built his entire method of inquiry on a single aggressive assertion: "I know that I know nothing." Socrates used rigorous questioning to guide his students into a state known as Aporia, a psychological condition characterized by profound cognitive dissonance, perplexity, and productive uncertainty. He deliberately dismantled his interlocutor's most confident assumptions. In the Socratic framework, reaching a state of deep confusion is not a failure. It is an aggressive epistemological stance directed against intellectual complacency. The acute recognition of our own ignorance creates the friction required to learn. True intellectual humility operates as the necessary starting point for all objective critical thinking. If groundedness provides such a distinct cognitive advantage, we must ask why human hierarchies so consistently elevate individuals who succumb to extreme hubris. Sociologists, individuals typically ascend to leadership roles by deploying high levels of empathy, collaboration, and careful listening. Yet once they attain absolute authority, they lose the exact traits that earned them influence in the first place. Advanced neuroimaging reveals that unchecked power functionally impairs a neural mechanism called mirroring. This is the biological cornerstone of empathy, the subconscious process that allows humans to simulate the emotional experiences of others. Under the influence of authority, this simulation process shuts down. Looking at this plotted data, we see a stark correlation. As exposure to power increases over time, mirroring activity drops significantly. Leaders effectively suffer a condition akin to a traumatic brain injury, creating an acute empathy deficit. Researchers David Owen and Jonathan Davidson clinically codified this phenomenon as Hubris Syndrome, an acquired disorder triggered by overwhelming success and minimal institutional constraint. The clinical features of this syndrome include reckless impulsivity, severe risk blindness, and a total loss of contact with reality. Without a stabilizing anchor, the brain physically deteriorates in its capacity to process social friction. The absence of humility is a dangerous physiological byproduct of authority rather than a simple moral failing. To survive the neurological decay of power, history's most effective tacticians actively weaponized the limitations-owning framework, the discipline of acknowledging structural weaknesses rather than expending energy to deny them. Military strategist Sun Tzu built his entire doctrine on this brutal honesty. He argued that victory is impossible without total subjugation of the commander's ego to objective reality. If you are blinded by the desire to appear powerful, you cannot accurately assess the terrain or your own capabilities. This groundedness allows for a specific type of tactical deception, feigning weakness. By mastering the ego's urge to display strength, a commander can project a false vulnerability that mirrors the enemy's own hubristic expectations. This outward display of humility acts as a mirror for the opponent's arrogance. When an adversary believes they face a weaker force, their hubris syndrome takes over, inducing the exact impulsive, risk-blind decisions that lead to their own destruction. Tactical superiority is the result of seeing yourself and your adversary without the filter of vanity. The greatest victories are secured not through brute force, but by outmaneuvering an opponent who has lost contact with his own limitations. This deliberate regulation of the ego extends directly into statecraft. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln assumed the United States presidency facing a fractured, collapsing nation. Rather than surrounding himself with loyal flatterers, Lincoln assembled a team of rivals. He appointed his fiercest political opponents, men who openly coveted the presidency and frequently criticized his intellect. Lincoln's intellectual humility allowed him to accept that his own knowledge was incomplete. He prioritized immense intellectual diversity and productive friction over the comfort of his own pride, harnessing that tension to navigate the civil war. Centuries earlier, the 11th century monarch King Canute demonstrated a similar commitment to confronting limitations. Surrounded by courtiers who claimed his royal authority was absolute, Canute ordered his throne carried to the shoreline and commanded the incoming tide to stop. As the ocean rose and soaked his royal garments, Canute turned to his sycophants. He used the failure of his own command as incontrovertible proof that human edicts are entirely meaningless against the supreme laws of nature. By intentionally embracing opposition and staging public confrontations with natural boundaries, these leaders maintained their grip on reality. The structural, daily practice of humility operates as the only proven prophylactic against the blinding effects of power. The tension between asserting expertise and admitting ignorance has recently driven a shift in how professionals approach global leadership, sociology, and healthcare. For decades, institutions trained professionals in cultural competence, a model that treated diverse human identities as static data points to be memorized and checked off. Today, that framework is being replaced by the model of cultural humility. Competence relies on the reductive illusion that a person's culture can be fully mastered by an outsider. Humility abolishes the idea of an endpoint. It demands a lifelong Socratic stance of not knowing, anchored by continuous critical self-reflection. Operating within this framework requires professionals to actively redress systemic power imbalances. It demands the replacement of paternalistic authority with mutually beneficial, highly empathetic partnerships. Admitting we know nothing is not an act of surrender. By decentering the ego and acknowledging the vast expanse of what we do not control, we create the conditions for genuine human connection and lasting resilience.